Hey guys, it's Flip, and today I'm going to show you the tool that in my opinion is the absolute best tool for weeding in a garden, and that is a stirrup hoe. So this tool is made by Craftsman, and they actually call it an action weeding hoe. And these types of hoes are known by a lot of different names, which I'll go over in a minute. But this particular model has a 54-inch wood handle. It has that cushioned grip on the end, and obviously it has the looped blade. So what makes this effective and unique is that the blade is sharp on both edges, and it has some play in it. It'll pivot back and forth like this. So it will cut in both directions. It'll cut when you're pushing like that or pulling like that. So now I'm going to go into my garden and show it to you in action. So here's a before shot of my garden. I haven't done any real weeding yet this year after having the plants in the ground for a few weeks. But this gives you the general idea of how a stirrup hoe works. You're just going to push it back and forth, scraping it along the surface of the ground. And as this happens, you're going to be ripping through roots and stems and sometimes uprooting entire tiny weeds. Now compare that with hand picking weeds, and this is a lot faster. Or we can compare that to a regular garden hoe, which I'm using here. Now this method works, but I think it's slower, I think it's a little harder on your back, and you're displacing a lot of dirt. With the stirrup hoe, you're just kind of scraping it along the surface of the dirt, killing the weeds in the process and tilling the dirt at the same time. Now my garden sits on a hill, and this is the uphill part, which is why it's so dry right here, and you can see it's still going through it pretty easily. This is some pretty nasty ivy in this corner, and you'll see that it'll make pretty quick work of it too. So I'm referring to this as a stirrup hoe because that's what I know it as, because it looks like a stirrup, but it actually is known by a lot of different names. I've seen this type of tool referred to as a loop hoe, a scuffle hoe, a hula hoe, a push-pull hoe, an oscillating hoe, or as Craftsman calls it, an action weeding hoe. But whatever you want to call it, it's doing the same thing. It's making a shallow cut right below the surface of the dirt, and it's cutting the stems and roots of the weeds. And sometimes it'll uproot the entire weed altogether. It all depends on how deep you're cutting, but the idea is you don't have to cut that deep. Just a shallow cut will work. That saves you some energy and limits the amount of force you have to put into this. Now I'm not going to say it's effortless. I'm definitely sweating by the end of this project here. It still takes some effort. But I will say that it makes this job easy compared to hand picking these weeds or just using a regular garden hoe. Now there's a couple ways you can go about this. So first you make your shallow cut through the soil, and you're going to slice through the weeds or uproot them. From there, there's a couple ways you can go. You can just leave the weeds on the surface of the dirt, and most of them are going to dry out and die, and then just decompose and add nutrients to your soil. But that's not to say that some of these weeds won't come back, especially some tougher grassy weeds when part of the root is left in the ground. So if you want to be certain that these won't come back, you can kind of scoop these weeds up as you go with a rake or with your hands, as I've kind of been doing in the video here. Now as the season goes along, when I just have a few weeds here and there, I'm typically just going to scrape them up and leave them on the surface of the dirt, and when it's hot in the summer they will just dry up. Now in the case of the video here, I hadn't done any weeding yet this year, so I had a lot of weeds and I wanted to at least get some of them cleaned up and out of the garden. Another plus of the tool is you can be pretty accurate with it and get right up next to your plants. So right here I'm going right between some green beans and not hurting them. Having said that, some type of bug is hurting them. As you can see, there's holes in the leaves, and I just sprayed those for bugs, so hopefully that helps. But typically when I don't have a ton of weeds like this, I'll just slice them up and leave them on the surface of the dirt. Some are going to come back, but if you just keep going over it like this, keep harassing them. Eventually they stay away. Right here I'm getting some weeds behind my snap pea trellis. That's kind of nice. You can fit it into some tight places. And as far as this tool goes, I got it at Lowe's, and I will put a link to this exact tool under the video in the description. I will also put a link to a good one that is sold on Amazon. So hopefully this video helps you out and makes your garden weeding go easier. I know this tool has saved me some time. So here's the after shot of the garden when I was all done. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.